Okay, so welcome to Powerless Penguins United Big Book Study. This week I'm pleased to introduce Mags, who's kindly come along to continue with the Big Book Study. Over to you, Mags.
Thank you so much, Laws. Good morning, everybody. I'm Mags. I'm an alcoholic. Drugs are part of my story too. Like it says in the preamble, alcohol statement, all of that. I substituted one for the other and back again. And Laws, thank you so much for being here every Saturday. Your service is amazing. I see you at other meetings and other places, and what you do for the fellowships is remarkable stuff. So thank you for always being here for all of us, and for everybody that does service here during the week as well. It's an amazing gang of people that hang together. So thank you so much. We're on page 62. I'm actually going to cover a paragraph that I already covered last week because I felt as if I raced through it in the end to get to a particular point. We're going to be starting with that amazing paragraph right at the top, the first full paragraph on 62, beginning with selfishness, self-centeredness, exclamation mark. Yeah. These next few paragraphs that we're going to cover are just phenomenal. So sit back and enjoy this ride. This is where we're really going to get down to the detail. This part of the book has got so much richness in it, and there's a couple of things in here that are they're myths that are going to be busted as to some of the little things that are said in the rooms that are taken completely and utterly out of context from what it says in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's one in particular. So we know by this point we're in step 3, as Laws said. We've moved into that towards the bottom of page 60. It begins with being convinced. We were at step 3, so being convinced to be moved by the evidence. Moved by what evidence? Well, we've been moved by the evidence from what we read in the book. And gone through with our sponsor from the front cover page up to page 60, but particularly page 60 draws us to the end of that very detailed discussion that started at the bottom of page 20, moderate drinkers, and works its way through to the third pertinent idea, God could and would if he were sought. So within the body of those 40 pages, we've learned so much. From page 20. We've learned about the mental obsession that begins on page 23. It ends on page 43. We've then gone into the unmanageability of our life, the second half of the first step, page 44 down to the middle of page 45. We've understood that lack of power is our dilemma. Well, where are we to find that power? Well, that's exactly the purpose of the book. We've understood in chapter 1, Bill's story, we've understood his hopelessness and he's beyond medical aid. We've read that story as a personal story. Did we drink like him? Did we think like him? Did we feel like him? Will this program work for us too? We've read the doctor's opinion. Do you have this allergy that makes me different from other people? I react absolutely abnormally to this really normal substance, that being alcohol, and that I can never get the sense of ease and comfort from picking up one drink. So the solution is not to pick up the first drink, because that's what the problem is. When I pick up the first drink, I put it into my system. It sets off the phenomenon of sets off the allergy, which manifests itself in the phenomenon of craving. I'm talking really fast. We know all of this stuff. Blah 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 blah. We know all of this stuff by this stage. The reason why it can roll like it does with me is because every single day I give this stuff away. Every single day I'm in this book talking to other alcoholics, trying to bring this alive for them. Is this you? Is this you? Is this you? Is this you? You go into there is a solution. You understand the fact that we join in brotherly and harmonious action. The great news of this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the bottom paragraph on page 17. We understand that we are normally people that would not mix when we're in the midst of our existence in active addiction. We understand the common peril, that being the allergy, the common solution being the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We understand all of that. Well, you might not understand it, but you've been through it. You're experiencing it. You're going into chapter 3 more about alcoholism. We understand that this is an illness. We understand that we have to reach the point of pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. We're working through the fact that after every relapse, it gets worse, never better. You know, we've gone through all of those stories. We've been through the guy with the carpet slippers. We've been through the jaywalker. We've been through Jim, the milkman, as I like to call him. We've been through Fred's story. We've been through all of that. Can you see how much richness there is even within those 40 pages of all of the stuff that we've learned? And that's only me scratching the surface of a summary. That's why we have to do this with a sponsor. We understand on page 34 the definition of alcoholism, that we have the complete and utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how much the desire, the wish, the urge, the necessity. It's all 4 of those things. We understand that we have no power, no choice, no control over alcohol, and it's all 3. Now, this is why we need a sponsor. This is why we need to have a big book. This is why we need to seek, because when we seek this power that is greater than ourselves, this book gives us access to that power. So being convinced of all of that, you are at step 3. You know, last week we covered that story of the actress running the show, the actor running the show. Doesn't matter how you identify. Don't get into all of those windy arguments. It does not matter how you identify. Just read the story and ask yourself, is this you? Your ego will try every trick outside of this book to make you think you're different. You know, your gender, your identification, your background, your sexual orientation, whether you're married, whether you're not married, whether you have kids, no kids. That's got nothing to do with why you're an alcoholic or an addict. Get it out of the way. Set aside every single thing you think you know to have this new experience with the power that is greater than yourself. We've gone through that story. We've understood already that there's 22 different forms of the word self within this story. The paragraph that we're starting on, selfishness, self-centeredness, that's number 12 and number 13. There's still another 9 or 10 to go yet in the couple of paragraphs that we're following through. If anybody needs the 22 pointed out to them, send me a message. I'll send it to you. I'll let you know if we haven't been counting as we've been going along. So there's still 9 or 10 to go yet. So you thought you were over the hump of the selves. No, you're not. There's still more to come in the next couple of paragraphs. So set aside every single thing you think you know to get into this. We know that we've been wrestling satisfaction with this world if only we could manage well. Wrestling with a W. Wrestling means to fight, not to rest, as in to lay down and rest. But what this program enables me to do is to literally rest. You know, I know this sounds quite grim, but that word rest is really important. Please bear with me as I share this. I don't know why it's coming into my mind, but I'm going to say it anyway. That word rest is it's so incredibly important. I wrestled my whole life trying to get the satisfaction in this world, if I could only manage well. And, you know, here when someone, or anywhere in the world maybe, when someone passes away, we say, oh, you know, rest in peace. Rest in peace. It's the anniversary of my mum's passing. Yeah. And, you know, we're going to go to a celebration of her life later on today. And the prayers will be in the organized religion in which I was raised. It's not my spiritual way of living, by the way. So place no judgment on me about that. But the prayers that we will be saying in celebration of her life later on will be that may she rest in peace. But the world that I live in this 4th dimensional world of existence, I don't want to have to die to rest in peace. I have the opportunity to rest in peace in this life. And that's what this program of recovery and this program of action has provided to me. You know, that's what this is all about. And as much as is humanly possible, because of the gift of what this program has given me and the actions that I need to take in every single moment of the day, I can drop into that peace. I can drop into the awareness of the presence of the power that is greater than me, that is deep down within me. We know that already from we agnostics, deep down within every man, woman and child. In the last analysis, that is where it may be found. And in the last analysis of me trying to find the power that is greater than me was only about 30 seconds ago when I dropped into the awareness to say, do I tell them about this? Do I not? And that little voice within just said, go. So I go. Now I know that might sound my favorite word. It might sound a little bit woo-woo, but as I'm talking to you, there's another conversation going on here with me. You know, I get the guidance, I get the direction, I get the steer. Those little commands that tell me what to do, to go, to stop, to turn, to stay. You know, seriously, that is how the flow goes. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that in my life, what this program has given me, like it says I'm 61, I'm the opposite sometimes of all of this stuff now. You know, I don't have to exert myself so much. I don't have to propulse myself so much. I don't have to, you know, be indignant and a self-seeker. I don't have to be self-centered and egocentric. What the program does, what the devotion does in my step 10, 11 and 12 every single day is provides me with a set of tools that bring something different to my life. But I have to say that I was a walking page 62. I was selfish, self-centered. That's how I was. So whilst we're reading these next couple of paragraphs, again, as always, you're asking yourself, you're setting aside every single thing you think you know about the program, about where you are right now, about your sobriety, about your 12 steps in order to have the new experience with God in this moment. Because I don't care how long you've been away from alcohol and drugs, you might still be experiencing some of this unmanageability within your life. And therefore you still need the power. You might be blotting out the consciousness of your intolerable situation, like it says on page 25. And in actual fact, you've got no other option in this moment to accept the spiritual help, the circumstances in which you find yourself. So is this you? Is this you? Is this you? Let's go over that paragraph again. Selfishness, self-centeredness. That we think is the root of our troubles. Think about that word. You'll find as we go through the book, there's a lot of, my sponsor calls them horticultural references, you know. They're talking about plants. They're talking about, you know, the ugliness of the trees. You can't see the beauty of the forest because of the ugliness of the trees in we agnostics. It talks about our roots have grasped a new soil in Bill's story. You know, there's those little threads that go right the way through the entirety of the book, that golden thread as I call it. So this little reference, think about the root of something. A root is deep, deep, deep down into the earth if we're thinking about the root of a plant. Or if you want to get really grim, you know, when you have the root of your tooth, when that gets you in trouble, that's painful, right? It takes a lot of extraction to get into that root canal to sort out the problem. I prefer to talk about the earth and the plants. It feels a little bit more gentle when we're hitting you over the head with what is actually going on deep down inside you. I don't want everybody cringing every time we talk about the root of your tooth, because maybe you'll then switch off because you'll get some sort of resentment from the past against the dentist who was trying to pull it out. I don't know. I'm making all this up to go along this morning. But think about the plants. It's much nicer. So the root goes right down into the earth, doesn't it? And there's no point putting that weed out at the top of your pavement stones in your gorgeous patio when your friends are coming round to have lunch to make it all look gorgeous. Because if your friends sat there long enough, the weed would grow again because you haven't got down to the root of the problem. So we think it is the root of our trouble, driven by 100 forms of fear. Driven. Like, think about that too. You're driven by 100 forms of fear. It's what's driving you forward. It's the speed at which your life is moving. You're driven by your fear. It's taking you from A to B to C. When you're driven somewhere, it takes you to a destination. Right now, are you driven to your destination filled with fear, filled with 100 forms of fear? And not only 100 forms of fear, here's another self and another self and another self. Driven by 100 forms of fear, 100 forms of self-delusion, 100 forms of self-seeking, 100 forms of self-pity. The 100 forms doesn't only relate to the word fear here. It relates to all of those, because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of this stuff that I'm driven by this stuff at a particular point. I was a walking page 62. What was happening as a result of all of this self-delusion, all of the stuff that I was making up in my mind. Delusional. All of the things I was making up about you, what you'd done to me, what you hadn't done for me, why hadn't you done this, why wouldn't you do this, is there any chance you could do this? Delusional. All because I wanted to wrestle with you to make me feel better. Let's think about that. Is this what you're doing right now with the people in your life? You're trying to get what you want, wrestling satisfaction with this world, delusional thoughts in our mind. If I only do this, if I only do that, if she would only do this, if I could get her to do that, self. I want, I need. You get the drift. Self-seeking all the time. As opposed to seeking a power that is greater than ourselves, who could solve and would solve all our problems. The pertinent idea, see, God could and would if he were sought. And self-pity. Oh, there's 100 gazillion billions of forms of self-pity. Ugh, I hate self-pity. Oh, it makes me cringe. Ugh. Do you know those moments when you're sitting in that really stagnant pond of self-pity? It's like what it says in Bill's story, the bitter morass. The bitter morass of self-pity. It was a gorgeous, clear, beautiful little pond with, water lilies and gorgeous little frogs and koi fish. All beautiful, beautiful, swimming around in that. But no, my pond, the bitter morass of self-pity has just got this dark green algae sitting on the top of it. I'd rather sit in that than be in the fresh water with all of the life that's swimming around me. No, I'll just sit here in this pond and just wait for somebody to come and get me. And then when you come and get me, no, I'm all right here. You don't know what my life is like. I'm grand just here. I'll sort it all out by myself. You don't know what it's like to be me. Shut up, Max. Get over yourself. Do you know that phrase? Get over yourself. Yes, in my life, I had to have something to help me get over myself. Because I was the problem of this, but I couldn't see it. I was so asleep. Remember, the 12th step is having had a spiritual awakening. As the result of the steps, each time we turn these pages, all I do is keep on showing up and turn the pages. Each time I turn the page, I become more and more and more awake, where I can start to see this stuff inside me. It's hard to see it, to accept it. It's hard to experience this stuff and say, do you know what? Yeah, with an open mind, with a willingness, the honesty and the open mind to see that, you know what? Yeah, this is me. And as a result of all of those 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking and self-pity, what happens? I step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. And then I think, oh my God, nobody likes me. Self-pity again. Delusional. Self-seeking. I'll propulse myself even more, thinking that I'm making things better, when in actual fact I'm making things worse, having already created the problem in the first instance. Do you know that thing the thing that I used to do was, I thought I was helping my sister and my brother and my dad and nieces and nephews by telling them, a little white lie. When in actual fact it would have been easier to tell the truth. Like, what is that? And positioning it in my mind, in my self-delusional mind, sure, it's okay, it's only a little white lie. It's a lie. It's a full-blown lie to get what I want out of the situation. And then when they find out the truth, they speak to me about it. I think that they're retaliating, when in actual fact all they're doing is calling out the truth to me. I can't accept them calling out the truth to me. So what do? Go into the same cycle again. Fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. An ever vicious cycle. This is the root of my problem. It's so deep down within the earth within me. And it's a really difficult one to pull out. I can't pull it out by myself. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation. I always use my sister because she was the protagonist in my show. She was one of the lead characters in my show. I give her the position of the lead in my life. It was because of her I did this. It was because of her I was found out. It was because of her. I made that woman's life like hell. I created havoc in her life. I created havoc, mistrust in her home. I brought trouble to her door, and she loved me at my worst. Until she couldn't any longer. And she had to let me go. She had no other option in her life than to accept whatever help she required at that time. She got the strength. She was given the direction. Let your sister go. But she's going to die. Let her go. Because if you don't let her go, she's going to cause your family to break up. Got to ask yourself, is this what you're doing in your life right now? In your active addiction? Is this what you're doing right now? Because the reality of it is, when I come to a meeting, what I'm here is to share the news, carry this message to the newcomer. You know, there's newcomers all over this room right now. Is this you? And for the people that aren't the newcomer, is this you? You might still be going through some of this. And it might be with your sponsor that this is all coming to light for you right now. So seemingly without provocation. However, the next line is so important. But we invariably, I have to admit that almost always, invariably is a really strong word, almost always I found that at some time in the past, I had made the decisions, we had made the decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. It was my decision that made things worse. It was me telling the lie when it would have been easier to tell the truth. I placed myself in a position to be hurt. So here's the thing. The root of my problem has to be removed. But what I was doing at the time as a walk on page 62, mixed in with a walk on page 52, you can imagine where that's going to do. All of those bedevilments mixed into this, a prey to misery and depression, not able to make a living, all of those 9 bedevilments set out on page 52 mixed with this selfishness and self-centeredness. It's not a nice place to live. It's not a beautiful existence. It's certainly not me resting in peace in this life. Absolutely and utterly not. But what I would do then is that beautiful flourishing plant on the outside. What I would try to do is make myself look better. What I would try to do is to make myself appear better. To make sure that the leaves of the plant on the outside that everybody could see were absolutely beautifully pruned and looked after and vibrant and all of that. But all the while, what was happening was those leaves on the outside were starting to turn a funny colour of brown. The leaves were starting to drop off. I was trying everything to make the outer appearance of MAGS look good. Yet all the while, what people were actually seeing from me was a darkness, the fear. And what I just started to do was to start to pick the leaves off, thinking that that was going to make it better, trying to replace it with something else. But the reality of it is my life wasn't flourishing because the root of the trouble was the cause. Don't get me wrong. I'm no horticulturist. You wouldn't find me on Gardener's World, that's for sure. I can't keep a pot plant alive for love nor money. I can't even keep a cactus alive. It doesn't even need any water, right? But if I have a plant in my house and I start to see the leaves turning brown, my natural thing is to just fire more water on it and it'll make it better. Fire more water into it. It needs more water. It needs more water. But in actual fact, I'm saturating it. I'm actually killing the plant. So the leaves are turning more brown and the leaves are falling off and ultimately the plant dies. The point I'm making is when I throw all sorts of fear, self-seeking, self-delusion and everything into my problems, I'm making it worse. What's on the outside, the manifestation that you are seeing of all of these things is not the issue. What I have to get down to is the root cause. If I don't take away the roots, the manifestation of the external is always going to be the same. You're always going to see the selfishness, the dishonesty, the self-seeking, the fear, the resentments, which we're going to be moving into. You're always going to see the manifestation of what's happening inside me. So we've got to get into the cause. It's not okay just to deal with the manifestation on the outside. We've got to examine what's going on within. I've got to remove the root. Because if I don't remove the root, the stuff keeps growing back and growing back and growing back. And it gets worse every single time. You know, that one tiny little weed in your garden turns out to be this big bush of a thing. That's what happens with our selfishness, our dishonesty, our self-pity, our self-seeking, our fears, all of that. This is what it's getting down to. So if you think you're just going to pick the little thing off the top, or do you know, today I'll just tell that little white lie, pick off the top. The lie is the root. The cause is your dishonesty. Let's start talking about that. Let's start being honest with ourselves. The little white lies are something deeper. The little white lies are you being delusional. The little white lies are you being dishonest. The little white lies are you being self-seeking. The little white lies are you driven from fear because you do not want to tell the truth in case of somebody saying something about you that you don't like. I hope this is making sense. And I'm sharing the little white lie thing just as a really simple example. But when you start thinking about everything that's going on in our lives and what we're doing to cover up what's actually going on within, me putting more water on the plant is covering up what actually needs to be solved. The plant needs to be taken out. The plant needs to be repotted. The plant needs to be brought somewhere else. The plant needs to be thrown away because it's dead. And something else needs to come into existence. Ultimately, that's what happens in my life. I'm dying inside. In the end, the alcohol was my solution. In the end, I was dying inside, and I just kept topping it up and topping it up and topping it up to make me feel better, to make the external look better, but it wasn't working. I had to get rid of what was inside. You hear people saying it's an inside job. I never knew what that meant until I did. Like when you hear that paragraph in a meeting or you read it by yourself, like get beneath the words, get beneath the lines, get beneath what's actually saying. This is why you need to do this stuff with a sponsor. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. 100% they are of our own making. It's not about what he did to me. It's not about what she did to me. It's not about what anybody on this planet did to me. Not at all. They arise out of ourselves. And the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot. You know those words? Driven, riot, collision, noise, fight, noise, revolution. It's all noise. It's all fight. There's no resting. There's no resting in peace when we're dealing with all of these 100 forms of everything. The riot goes on in our minds, overthinking, trying to plot, trying to plan. The riot in our minds, though we don't usually think so. Here's the piece, the myth that needs to be busted. Do you ever hear in the rooms people say, Alcoholics Anonymous, it's a selfish program for selfish people? Pure and utter justification for people to get away and to continue to get away with their own selfishness. It's a selfish program for selfish people. No, it's not. It tells us here, above everything. Hear those words. Above everything, we alcoholics must. There's that word must. There's another myth. There's no musts in AA. Yeah, there are. There's one of them right there. We alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. So if it's a selfish program for selfish people, how can it be when the instruction clearly on page 62 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is telling us as alcoholics, addicts, we must be rid of this selfishness? This program is quite the opposite of a selfish program for selfish people. It's a selfless program for selfish people. It's an altruistic program of action. It's an altruistic program of recovery. Page 20, we're introduced to it way before we get to this point. As an ex-problem drinker, my very life depends upon my constant thought of others. So how can it be a selfish program for selfish people? We got to change the narrative of what we're saying in the rooms, because we're taking the clear-cut directions and instructions from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which are really simple. They're not easy to follow all the time, like it says in Bill's story, but it's really, really simple. This is a selfless, altruistic program for selfish people, enables us to change our ways and become less selfish people. So above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. Another word, self. It reiterates it. We must. no must in AA. There's two in one line in the big book. We must. Why? Or it kills us. How can it be a selfish program for selfish people when they're telling us we must be rid of it? Why? We must, because it will kill us if we don't get rid of it. That's the truth. That is the truth of what we're dealing with here. You take away the drink problem. Page 19, the elimination of our drinking is but the beginning. We're now getting down to the root cause of what is going on inside every single last one of us. And it is the most powerful, beautiful, transformative, amazing, wonderful experience. Didn't feel like it at the time, but it is. Truly it is. And then I just love the way they drop this in. We're sitting here thinking, we must be rid of it. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Because if we don't get rid of it, it kills us. And then they drop this little line in. God makes that possible. Just sit with that. Close your eyes. Do whatever you need to do to bring your mind into this moment. Take a breath, the deepest breath you can possibly take, and rest in absolute and utter peace in this moment, knowing that this power that is greater than you makes this possible. And there seems a way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Listen to that. There's no getting rid of this entirely without his aid. Yet with his aid, I can get rid of this entirely. The problem can be removed, like the alcoholism. The drink problem has been solved. The problem has been removed. We have a devotional practice. As we go through the rest of these steps, we're moving into a really integral part as we move into step 4, but we need to get our heads wrapped around this step 3. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore. Yes, you might be a really good person. You've been brought up by a really good family and be a really good employee and a really good sister and a really good... Morally, you might be absolutely beautiful and a wonderful person. Philosophically, you've got the convictions galore. You're in a religion and you're praying and you're doing service in the organized religion that you're part of. You've got all of that going on in your life. How's that going for you? How's that going for you? Because here's the thing, with those moral and philosophical convictions galore, we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. Of ourselves, we cannot live up to them, even though we would have liked to. And neither could we reduce our self-centeredness. There's the self again. We couldn't reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. It's like page 34. Like I said at the top of this conversation, alcoholism, the utter inability to leave it alone no matter how much the urge, the wish, the desire or the necessity. The same applies to our selfish and self-centeredness. All of those things. We could not reduce it much by wishing or trying on our own willpower. We have no power. Lack of power is our dilemma. Where we define the power, well, that's exactly the part of the point of this book, for you to gain access to that power. We cannot do this by wishing or trying on our own power. And here's this other little line. They just drop it in ever so beautifully. Ever so beautifully. Here's the deal. We had to have God's help. Full stop. Period. We had to have God's help. If you're sitting here confused with everything that I'm saying, what is she going on about? The selfishness. I can't do it by myself. I'm trying to do this by myself. I can't get over this. I still keep on making the same mistakes. I keep doing this wrong. I'm not good enough. There's no point in me doing the program. Shut up. Set aside every single thing you think you know to have this new experience with God. You need God's help. By the way, when I say shut up, I don't mean you know what I mean? It's like, shut up. I'm not shouting at you, by the way, you know, in case anybody gets the resentment or gets angry. I'm just saying, shut up your head, because this delusional thinking ain't going to get you anywhere. You know, quiet the mind, set it aside, have the new experience. So you're sitting here thinking, how did I do this? How did I get down to the root cause? How far down is the root? Where do I even start? Do I need a whole set of tools, implementations to get, you know, what I do? Well, all you've got to do is this. This is the how and the why of it. They're going to show us, they're going to tell us exactly what we've got to do. This is the how and the why of it. First of all, the how. We had to quit playing God. The why of it didn't work. That's the how and the why of it. We have to quit playing God. Why? Because it doesn't work. Boom. You could just drop the mic and leave today. You could just drop the mic and sit with that for the next 7 days. The how and the why of it. Let's sit and talk about that for the next 7 days. The how, I've got to quit playing God. Do you know what? It's just dawned on me. I am not God. Why do I have to stop trying to play God? Because actually, it's not working. And the manifestations of it not working are all apparent 100% in my life. Isn't that a beautiful way that they do that and they set this out, the how and the why of it? With to quit playing God. Why? Doesn't work. I speak to sponsees all the time. Why are you doing that? Well, because it's not working. So why are you doing it? Self will run riot, noise, chaos, confusion. We can rest in peace in this world. We can rest in peace in this life. Because here's the thing. We've got to make this decision. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. All we're doing in 3 is making the decision. Next, we decided. We're making the decision. We decided that hereafter, in this drama of life, the actress, actor, person running the show, that hereafter, so from now on, in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. Not you. God is going to be your director. That's one position. Okay? Next position, he is the principal. We are his agents. Remember, we agnostics spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, special agents. I am a special agent for God. That's what it tells us in we agnostics. Spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, intelligent spearhead of God's ever-advancing creation. That's what they tell us in we agnostics. Isn't that an amazing thing? Page 49, ever-advancing creation. We believe that human intelligence was the last word, the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end. Rather vain of us, wasn't it? Absolutely rather vain of us, wasn't it? We are special agents of God. He is the principal. He is the director. So the second position is that he is the principal. First, he's the director. Second position, he's the principal, and you are his special agent. You go out and do the work. I do God's work. I don't do God's job. He's the principal. He does the job. I do his work. He assigns me the work. That's why I'm here today, every Saturday with Laws. God has assigned me this work. I'm a special agent. Laws and I are special agents. Thank God we're not solving crimes, because I don't know where that would get us if we were special agents in a police force. But anyway. And the next position, he is the father and we are his children. You know, set aside every single thing you think you know about your family, your father, your mother, or whoever, but the people that care for you, that provide for you. When I went to my father, my daddy as I call him, because that's just Irish, he's my daddy. He'll always be my daddy, even though I'm like, anyway, it doesn't matter. When I go to my daddy and ask a question, he always provides an answer. Anytime I go to my daddy, like if I need something, he always provides. He'll always give me a bit of wit. He'll always give me a bit of inspiration. He'll always give me a bit of guidance. When I go to him, he gives me what I need. The same applies to God as my father. Now, if you don't like the word father, take whatever it is that you need, Mother Nature, child of the universe that you are, spirit of the universe. Doesn't matter. Don't get into all of the blah about the lingo, but take it in the spirit in which they're presenting it to enable you to understand the position that one can take. He is the father and I'm the child. My parents looked after me. God looks after me. He provides everything I need. Always has done, always will do. So they're the positions that we're taking. God is the director. He is the principal. I am his agent. He is the father. I am his child. That's it. Next, we've decided that in this drama of life, I'm stepping back. I'm no longer running this show. God was going to be the director. He is the principal. We are his agents. He is the father and we are his children. Because here's the thing. Most good ideas are simple. We don't need to complicate this to be any more than what is set out just here. Most ideas are simple. And this concept, not anything else, this concept of those three positions was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we passed to freedom. The keystone, page 62, don't forget it. Step 2, the cornerstone. Step 3, the keystone. The keystone is that God, you are making a decision that God is the director, that he is the principal, that you are his agent, that you do his work, you don't do his job, that he is the father, that you are the child. That is the keystone at the top of the archway to which you are going to walk through to freedom. And the freedom comes in the release of turning your will and your life over 4 through 7. That's how simple this is. So over the course of the next 7 days, when we reconvene next Saturday, all you're going to think about is that position. All you're going to think about is those 3 things. What does that mean to you? What does that look like to you? What does that feel like to you? God, I need help with this. If this is the position that I am going to take, sincerely going to take this position, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Because next week you are going to find out what it means when you take that position. So don't get into the drama of life. Leave the drama behind. Sincerely take this position. What does it mean to you? Because I'm telling you now, from the bottom of my heart, you will be able to rest in peace in this life, in this existence, in this fourth dimension of existence, in a spiritual way of living that will 1,000,000% solve every single last solitary one of your problems, because you actually don't have any problems. I'll leave it at that.